Greetings all! Today, we'll be examining the relatively rare Dragon-type Pokemon Druddigon, the Cave Pokémon. Nasty, ornery, and all sorts of dangerous, Druddigon are brutish beasts that can easily tear apart anything that dares to get too close to their territory.
Druddigon have craggy bipedal bodies covered mostly in blue scales, with a thick beige-colored ribbed belly and a series of red spines on their three-clawed arms, legs, back, and noticeable tail. They have a pair of large wings on their back, while their head is a bright red color with craggy ridges along the edges of its skull cap, teeth-like bone extensions, and bright yellowish-orange eyes. Although most dragons have gradually become adapted to a more warm-blooded lifestyle and now share more in common with mammals than they do reptiles, Druddigon are cold-blooded and are still closely related to the reptiles dragons originally developed from. In essence, these beasts are the draconic equivalent to a living fossil. While the wings of Druddigon are not strong enough to enable flight, they are exceptionally effective at absorbing solar energy given off by the sun and distributing it throughout their bodies, keeping them exceptionally warm when outside. This means that, while they prefer the damp and isolated nature of caves, they will often sunbathe outside to absorb as much energy as possible, as they cannot move their bodies if they become too cold.
As dragon types are naturally vulnerable to the cold and ice type attacks in general, this places Druddigon in a unique situation where an imbalance between temperature and sunlight exposure can spell almost absolute doom.
If the outside air temperature grows too low, or if the sun is blotted out for more than a couple days, a Druddigon's blood will begin to freeze into a slurry before hardening completely, killing them instantly. If placed in such dire straits, however, Druddigon will actually immobilize themselves and release a special clotting compound into their bloodstream that rapidly causes their blood and soft tissue to harden. By not allowing their blood to flow as a thick, vein-damaging slurry and halting almost all cellular function in their bodies, this sudden petrifaction actually preserves their internal organs and puts Druddigon into suspended animation. Although their bodies effectively turn as hard as stone during this period of stasis, they are still vulnerable to physical damage and can still be mortally wounded. The only catch is that they won't die until they reawaken, which will only happen when their blood warms up enough to flow readily again. These traits alone have led many scholars to believe that Druddigon may have been the inspiration behind the creation of gargoyles, and may in turn have been transported overseas and used as actual statues in past centuries during periods of stasis. It would also work to explain their abilities, as the tough exterior and violent tendencies can grant them access to rough skin and sheer force as base abilities, while those that can strike with such viciousness that they can actually bypass the abilities of others can possess Mold Breaker as a hidden ability.
In comparison to most other dragon types, Druddigon are quite slow and difficult to battle faster opponents with, which is again a product of their cavern-dwelling, cold-blooded lifestyle, strangely preferring to live in tunnels constructed by Pokemon like Excadrill and Onix, among others.
Druddigon more than make up for the lack of mobility, however, with their vicious, cunning demeanor and the sheer brutality they demonstrate in battle. When hunting for prey, Druddigon will often infiltrate caverns and tunnels dug by Pokemon like Diglett and Dugtrio and steal the nests of other Pokemon to use as a lair, waiting quietly until something stumbles inside before leaping out and ferociously chasing it down, ripping it apart with claws sharp enough to cut through steel before devouring it in a single burst of carnage. Despite the fact that Druddigon have no teeth, they are able to easily crunch through meat and bone with the thick canine-like bone spurs growing from their jaws. Anything that may otherwise be toxic or rotten is quickly dealt with by their incredibly potent stomach acids, making anything with meat on it a viable food source. In connection with their general anatomy, these beasts are easily identified by the vibrantly colored heads which, aside from being colored bright red normally, possess an incredibly thick layer of scales harder than rock. While it is currently unknown why such a thick layer of scales would be needed, it seems that its purpose is to simply protect the most vulnerable part of their body, though Druddigon will often also use it as a weapon, charging at opponents to strike them face first as an initial blow to send them reeling. Such protection would indicate that Druddigon, which are generally solitary creatures, were once prey to another sort of organism long ago. Since Druddigon are still anatomically similar to their ancestors, their defensive shield has yet to be removed through evolution, and thus grants them surprisingly decent defensive stats. In short, Druddigon are destructive beasts that are strong on both offense and defense, potentially making them a viable combatant even against more powerful dragon types like Salamence and Kingdra. Sadly though, this is not entirely reflected in their stats, as while their base attack stat is above average for a fully evolved dragon-type Pokemon, they underperform in all other areas. As such, it can require some serious setup to make the most of them, but their powerful attacks can still allow them to make quite a vicious impact in battle if allowed to.
These beasts are just ugly. Mean, violent, monstrous, and just plain ugly. And I'm sorry if that's offensive or something, but I've got to draw the line somewhere. I just don't find any appeal to their craggy forms, and can't really understand at all how they can be visually appealing outside of their strikingly bright coloration. That being said, I will not deny that while these creatures might underperform in most areas and are really slow, they are violent to the extreme and can be a bit to handle if you're not used to their tendencies. These ornery monsters are not that great to work with if you're not specifically training for them alone, and because they don't play nice with others a lot of the time, they can be a pain to work with if you're just a casual trainer. Thankfully, they can be taught to hold back their power so they don't seriously hurt people, but they can still prove to be an issue to restrain if some other creature does something to get their blood boiling, metaphorically speaking. If you seriously plan on raising one of these beasts, make sure that you've got plenty of thick body armor on you, because you're gonna need it in case they get a bit too feisty with you.
While they might not be among the strongest of their type, Druddigon are still dragons in heart and body and can make short work of anything that dares to get close to their sharp claws and powerful jaws. You may have to really go out of your way to get them properly trained, but if you're willing to stick by them, they can unleash surprising power and more than make a name for themselves in close quarters combat.
Just do yourself a favor and try to keep on the good side and far away from them if they're in a bad mood. They might not always be that bright, but if you push them too far, they won't think twice about carving your face up to get out of theirs, regardless of whether you're friend or foe to them.
Thank you all for watching this video. It is always a pleasure to help teach others about the world of Pokemon and the many facets of it that exist in both the world we call home and the world they call home. If you'd like, please leave a comment and subscribe and ring the bell to this channel to get regular updates on content and anything else that might be going on. You can find me and my written work on DeviantArt under the name Titus and be informed of information and content uploads on my Twitter page and my Patreon page. Donations are always welcome. Always remember, the world of Pokemon is a vast and varied place, and there's no telling what secrets might be hiding just around the corner. So keep watch, stay vigilant, and always prepare for the unexpected. Until next time, have a wonderful rest of the day.